The Lord be with you.
And with your spirit.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew.
Glory to you, O Lord.
At that time, Jesus put another parable before the crowds, saying, "The kingdom of heaven may be compared to a man who sowed good seed in his field, but while men were sleeping, his enemy came and sowed weeds among the wheat and went away. And so when the plants came up and bore grain, then the weeds appeared also. And the servants of the householder came and said to him, 'Sir, did you not sow good seed in your field? How then has it weeds?' He said to them, 'An enemy has done this.' The servants said to him, 'Then do you want us to go and gather them?' But he said, 'No, lest in gathering the weeds, you root up the wheat along with them. Let them both grow together until the harvest, and at harvest time I will tell the reapers, gather the weeds first and bind them in bundles to be burned, but gather the wheat into my barn.' Another parable he put before them, saying, 'The kingdom of heaven is like a grain of mustard seed, which a man took and sowed in his field. It is the smallest of all seeds, but when it has grown, it is the greatest of shrubs and becomes a tree, so that the birds of the air come and make nests in its branches.' He told them another parable. 'The kingdom of heaven is like leaven which a woman took and hid in 3 measures of meal till it was all leavened.' All this Jesus said to the crowds in parables. Indeed, he said nothing to them without a parable. This was to fulfill what was spoken by the prophet, 'I will open my mouth in parables. I will utter what has been hidden since the foundation of the world.' Then he left the crowds and went into the house. And his disciples came to him, saying, 'Explain to us the parable of the weeds of the field.' He answered, 'He who sows the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world, and the good seed means the sons of the kingdom. The weeds are the sons of the evil one, and the enemy who sowed them is the devil. The harvest is the close of the age, and the reapers are angels. Just as the weeds are gathered and burned with fire, so will it be at the close of the age. The Son of Man will send his angels, and they will gather out of his kingdom all causes of sin and all evildoers, and throw them into the furnace of fire, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Then the righteous will shine like the sun in the kingdom of their Father. He who has ears, let him hear." The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
Jesus is by far the greatest storyteller. He had a great imagination, and was able to use things that were understandable and common for the people to understand. He used parables, and last weekend on Sunday, we listened to the parable of the sower sowing in different types of soil. And next weekend, we will still listen to parables. A parable is, the understanding of a parable is using something that is known and ordinary and common to explain something that is not so well known or hidden or not understandable. There are elements within the analogy used that are clearly understood, but even within the parable itself, there are still elements that are hidden. So, when Jesus used parables, there was some explanation, but some mystery that is still there. And of course, of the parables, the first one stands out. It is because the apostles actually asked him to explain. Now, if you've had any experience of planting, you will know that whenever you plant any garden, no matter how hard you try, there will be weeds that come up. And at least from my experience, when you plant, for some strange reason, those weeds even look like the flowers that you've planted. You know? I don't know if you have that experience. So he uses here weeds, and in other translations, darnel. And darnel and wheat look almost identical until they bear fruit. And we also know that from that type of weed, it really intertwines with the roots of the wheat. So to pull the darnel out beforehand is just destroying the wheat. There's a clear distinction, okay? Good and evil. Satan and his followers and minions, and God and his angels and his sons and daughters. It's a clear distinction, isn't it? And if we have to look into a society or community or even a family, we may even say, you are weeds right now. And we both know it. However, the line between good and evil runs through every human heart. Everyone. There is something of wheat in each of us and something of weeds in each person. Now we can try and deny that, but it's there. It's there. And the Lord that's part of the mystery of this parable. The Lord is really challenging us. Because in the first reading, it says, there is no God besides you who cares for all people, who knows each person, who knows the deepest parts of who we are. Only God knows that. He is aware of everything that is within us. And this parable of the weeds and the wheat, it's speaking about an interior reality, something that's within you, your intention, your motivation, the things that lie hidden to other people that you know and that God knows. And the Lord is challenging, what is your motivation? What are you doing? Yes, no doubt, if the weeds are so prolific in that garden of the soul, then surely the actions become clearly evil. They become clearly manifest. I'm very reticent to say there are evil people in the world. I'd rather say there are some people who do evil things in the world, because it is my strong conviction that the possibility for conversion is buried within each person. It doesn't matter how bad he may seem or she may be, the possibility for conversion is there. Every saint has a past. Every sinner has a future. And that's the challenge. If we decide to write off people in the process of their lives, trying to make sense of their lives, we could easily pluck out a Mother Teresa. We could easily destroy a Saint Augustine. God knows. So that's the first aspect of these readings. That within us there is wheat and weeds. And we must challenge ourselves to allow the wheat to strengthen and manifest itself in our words, in our thoughts, in our actions. The second aspect of these readings is we have to become more and more like God, who is so patient with us. We have to become patient with ourselves, because it's very easy to throw in the towel, isn't it? Especially when bad habits and ways of doing things and thinking and speaking even constantly come back to disturb us. Easy to throw in the towel. We have to be patient with ourselves. And like the image of being a farmer, we have to be consistent. We have to be consistent in that area of soil. We have to be, the Lord would use the word, attentive to the things, as St. Paul in his letter to the Romans says, of the Spirit, attentive to that. So, to be patient with ourselves, and certainly to be patient with those around us. Patient with our spouse, with our children, with our loved ones. Patient with our colleagues, people in the community. So, to have that quality of patience. Patience is a difficult virtue, isn't it? Especially when something happens over and over and over and over again. But just look at God. Observe him. How patient he is. He says, at the end of the harvest, I will send my angels. So that's the second aspect. Be patient. And that's difficult. Very difficult to be patient. God is asking us, the other parables, the first parable that we heard last week was speaking about soil, but now we're speaking about seed or growing. And when someone is patient, there's this movement from one place to the next. There's definitely a change that is taking place. And so you see it in the children, eh? And the child is born. We don't even know what their personality is, but give them 11 or 12 years, and you know that personality. You know that human being. Yeah. And the Lord is asking us to be patient with one another, to be understanding. When we are considering, it's the third aspect, when we are considering ourselves and the wheat manifesting more than the weeds, we will admit to ourselves, if we are honest, that some things we can't overcome. It's just impossible. You speak to anybody who's addicted to alcohol or drugs. I can't do it. I just can't do it on my own. It's impossible. You don't understand me. You're not me. I cannot do this thing. I can't overcome it. The third aspect is leaning on God. And leaning on God means humbly praying before the Most High, constantly asking, entreating God, begging God, pleading with God. That aspect, if you want to make a change from something that is not healthy in your life to something that is far healthier or good or holy, it is God who is going to give you that power, that insight, that ability, that desire, that constancy to make the change. Try it without him, and I guarantee you will fail. So the third aspect of these readings is asking us to lean on God, to turn towards God, to recognize that God has you. And I want to use that image of the seed, the image that I had in my mind and my heart this morning for these readings was a tiny seed in the hands of a powerful God. When we are small, when we are little before God, when we recognize our smallness before the Almighty, then God can do anything with us. Then the possibilities are immense. A small thing, you can move anywhere. We cannot move this building, but we certainly can move this candle. And God is asking us to express that smallness before Him, aware of everything that makes us small before God. So together with the virtue of patience is the virtue of humility. Then the wheat will grow. And God is really asking us to consider that in our own lives. And we pray for that gift today. He says through St. Paul in his letter to the Romans, the second reading today, the Spirit helps us in our weakness, for we do not know how to pray as we ought. But the Spirit intercedes for us with sighs too deep for words. The Spirit intercedes for the saints according to the will of God. Leaning on God, trusting God, allowing God to do whatever He needs to do within us. I don't think I've met a person who would ever have the courage to say, "Oh no, Father, I definitely want to be a weed at the end of the harvest." There's no person that wants to be a weed. No one. Even the naughty scoundrels who do all the wrong things. Not so? Yeah. There is goodness in everyone. There's a desire, even if we don't know how to, there's a desire to be good. It's embedded in us because we are in the image and likeness of God. And so we take this hopeful message today as you discern and contemplate your marriages and your families. God is patient. God is kind, forgiving, merciful. And He's asking you to be patient and humble. And He will do the rest.